The Fragile Vial by Jalāl Muhammad Balkhi or Rumi. Translation by Coleman Barks. I need a mouth as wide as the sky to say the nature of a true person, language as large as longing. The fragile vial inside me often breaks. No wonder I go mad and disappear for 3 days, every month with the moon. For anyone in love with you, it's always these invisible days. I've lost the thread of the story I was telling. My elephant roams his dream of Hindustan again. Narrative, poetics destroyed, my body a dissolving, a return. Friend, I've shrunk to a hair trying to say your story. Would you tell mine? I've made up so many love stories, now I feel fictional. Tell me. The truth is, you're speaking, not me. I'm Sinai and you're Moses, walking there. This poetry is an echo of what you say. A piece of land can't speak or know anything. Or if it can, only within limits. The body is the device to calculate the astronomy of the spirit. Look through that astrolabe and become oceanic. Why this distracted talk? It's not my fault I rave. You did this. Do you approve of my love madness? Say yes. What language will you say it in? Arabic or Persian? Or what? Once again, I must be tied up. Bring the curly ropes of your hair. Now I remember the story. A true man stares at his old shoes and sheepskin jacket. Every day he goes up to his attic to look at his work shoes and worn out coat. This is his wisdom, to remember the original clay and not get drunk with ego and arrogance. To visit those shoes and jacket and praise. The Absolute works with nothing. The workshop, the materials are what does not exist. Try and be a sheet of paper with nothing on it. Be a spot of ground where nothing is growing. Where something might be planted, a seed, possibly from the Absolute. Coleman Barks, in his book The Essential Rumi, places this poem in the second of the 28 sections he created to organize the text. He describes these divisions as faint and playful palimpsests spread over Rumi's imagination. They are not rigid categories but gentle overlays, loose structures that help the reader move through Rumi's vast body of work. Barks goes on to say that if we were to distill Rumi into something essential, it would be zikr, the practice of remembrance that everything is God. With that in mind, the poem begins to open differently. Its language is not merely description but a gesture toward remembering the one who permeates all things. The section where Barks places this poem is titled On Bewilderment. He explains this bewilderment as a state of sweet confusion, the threshold just before fanā, the annihilation of the self in God. To enter this poem, then, is to willingly step into that confusion. The way the poem moves, broken in places, leaping between images, shifting tones, enacts that state. Rumi is not trying to provide us with clarity, but to pull us into bewilderment, to let us taste the disorientation that precedes union. We enter the journey knowing it will unsettle us, and that is the point. In the opening stanza, Rumi uses hyperbole to describe the nature of a true person. Such a person is so vast, so beyond comprehension, that to speak of them would require a mouth as wide as the sky and a language as immense as longing itself. For the reader, this true person can easily be read as God. Rumi tells us at once that ordinary language is insufficient. Even if we stretch words to their limits, even if we expand them to fill the sky, they still fall short. The exaggeration is deliberate. It conveys the impossibility of containing the divine in human speech. In the same line, he also calls his longing to be with God as large as the largest language imaginable. In the second stanza, Rumi introduces the image of a fragile vial within himself, and he admits that this vial breaks often. This is an inner container that holds the soul's essence, an elixir of ecstasy. Whenever the vial shatters, its contents spill over, and the poet is thrown into madness. He disappears into that madness, just as the moon disappears from sight during its cycle. This breaking is tied to the moon's waxing and waning, to the ebb and flow of longing and loss of self. This is the state of bewilderment. The poet has not yet reached fanā, the final annihilation in God, but he hovers near it. He is close enough that the vial cannot bear the intensity, and so it breaks again and again. In these moments, madness overtakes him, and Rumi does not present this madness as weakness or failure. Rather, it is celebrated. Madness is the loosening of aql, the worldly intellect, the rational faculty that binds us to the illusion of control. When aql loses its grip, what remains is the emptiness that Rumi gestures toward throughout the poem, the blank spot, the bare patch of ground. In the next stanza, Rumi tells us that for those who are truly in love with God, for those dissolved in Him, life is always lived in this invisible state. They exist in a constant absence of I. Here the poet admits that he has lost the linear thread of his story, the kind that begins in one place and ends in another. He is now in a dreamlike state, which is very different from the state we normally call awake, a false sense of meaning, a false awakeness. He compares himself to an elephant taken from his true home of Hindustan and brought into Persia, able to return only in dreams. In the same way, we are here on this earth, far from our true home in the ocean of God, able to experience it only in moments of madness, moments of roaming without intent or structure. In admitting this, he also abandons structure itself. He lets go of narrative and poetics, both of which depend on form. By destroying structure, he destroys the form of the human, the form of the I, and dissolves back into the ocean that is God. In this stanza, the poet says that in trying to tell God's story, he has shrunk to the size of a hair. He begs God to tell his story instead. He admits he has told so many love stories, stories of divine love, that he now feels fictional, The more he tries, the more he feels untrue. But in the same breath, he realizes something. He is not speaking at all. The words that come from his mouth are God's words. He is Sinai, silent land, incapable of speech, while God is Moses walking upon it. Whatever he utters is only an echo of what God has already said. Once again, he is caught in bewilderment, standing a hair's breadth from fanā. He knows he cannot know fully because he remains bound to his body. He can know only within limits, not yet the limitlessness of the spirit. In the next stanza, he continues his musings in acceptance that this human body is nothing but an instrument to measure, to gauge, to calculate the astronomy of the spirit. He is urging the reader to look through this astrolabe, this body, onto the expanse of the skies, the vastness of the spirit, and to become less like the body, the instrument, and more like the thing you are looking into, the spirit, the ocean, and to become oceanic. Rumi shifts once more from addressing the reader to addressing God. He asks why God questions his distracted talk, his sudden changes of topic, his meandering speech. He insists it is not his fault, his madness, his love for God, his dissolving into him. That is what has made him speak in this way. Standing on the cusp of fanā, he asks if this madness is enough. Has he finally reached the point where God will accept him into himself? He urges God to say yes, to confirm that his madness is enough. But then he asks, in what language will you say it? Will it be Arabic, the language of religious authority in which the Quran was revealed? Will it be Persian, the language of Rumi's people? Or will it be another language altogether? In asking this, he questions the claim of clerics to be guardians of God's voice. He admits he is raving again, meandering once more. And then, in a true display of madness, after spending the entire poem speaking of raving, of freedom, of becoming oceanic, he contradicts himself and asks to be tied up, tied in the curly locks of God's hair. Hair, paradoxically, being bound becomes the same as being free. After all the meandering, he returns to the original thread of thought by breaking away from his ravings and digressions. This is signified in the remembrance that literally breaks the structure of the poem. The line seems like a loose thread. He describes a true man, a godly man, a man one with God. This man is described as one who stares at his old shoes and sheepskin jacket, who remembers the original clay, the material out of which he has been made, to remember that he is a drop of the God ocean, made out of that very same water, is to never become drunk on the eye of the ego and arrogance. In this human form, to visit the shoes and jacket every day is remembrance. It is the praise of God that we spoke about at the beginning, the zikr of God in everything we do. The Absolute works with nothing. God's workshop is emptiness. The materials are non-existence. Where there is no I, where there is absence, there the Absolute creates. So the poet urges, erase the self, become blank like a sheet of paper, bare like an empty patch of ground. When nothing remains, then there is space for something. Only then can the seed of the Absolute be planted. Only then do we reach fanā.